We're here to update you on the saga of Michael Burry's puts. He just came out yesterday with a conversation with the famous Michael Lewis, and they talk all about his positioning, his closing, his fund, et cetera, et cetera. Now, 2 weeks ago, Michael Burry got so much attention because of the 13F that came out that showed that his fund was buying a whole bunch of Palantir puts. And we broke down what those puts were. We kind of got into the logic of like what was going on. It was interesting. The positions seemed closed. And so if you go to our YouTube channel and you look up were Burry's puts a bad idea, you can find a whole breakdown of that conversation. Now, there's a couple of weird pieces that this conversation that Michael Burry had with Michael Lewis yesterday filled in. I want to play the key clip right here. Hopefully this doesn't get me banned from YouTube.
And
that makes sense.
of course, I closed the fund and I put on all the positions for myself right away, the same position.
So you're still in the position. So I want to talk.
Okay, so you heard that. He closed his fund and he put all the positions right back on. So that's key to what we're going to show you now. So we went through our SpotGamma open interest data, and that's how we calculate all this. But this was the core of the idea was on the 12th, he wrote, I bought 50,000 of these things. That was done last month, on to much better things the 25th. And we actually saw data that suggested that he closed some of these positions. And it was like, why would Michael Burry, this guy who has these long-term bets about a stock just crashing or an event taking place, why would he close those positions so quickly? Like, it just didn't really make much sense. But we saw in the open interest data that he did. Now, what we do with our open interest data here at SpotGamma is we track across all exchanges whether positions are being opened and closed by hedge funds. And so you see here on 1024 that this 50 strike put, which is the one that he identified, right? He identified that this is what he had. He closed 20,000 of those nearly. And like, that's odd. Why would he own them for a little while and then close them? Like, doesn't really make sense. And then what we picked up on 1115, somebody bought those back. And so we were not sure, like, this is a copycat trade. He said he closed those. It doesn't quite make sense. The trade itself is a little bit odd. It's a unique strike. It's very far of the money. As we broke down in the previous video, not sure if we love that position, but at any rate, he bought, and in the video he explains, he thinks basically Palantir is going to go all the way down to 50. So that is what he's seeing, and he thinks it's going to happen in 2 years. Go check out the video there. Hopefully we got that right. Now, he said he closed his fund. If you look up on Reuters, this is what he says. He wrote a letter to investors on the 27th. And again, in the conversation, he said he closed his fund. So we're going off for that. And this is where we can now track what's going on. Get my face out of the way here. This is raw open interest. So this is data that anybody can get. And what you see is the open interest of this contract all the way back to June of this year. You see it was fairly flat, and then it spiked quite a bit all the way up to this peak of around 60,000. Now, Burry had 50,000 of those positions. Again, they're very unique, far of the money, long dated options. So there's not a lot of volume and traffic in those positions. And in fact, if you look here, it looks like this is when a really big chunk of those was put on. What you're seeing at this bottom is what we call our buy side OI. So this is SpotGamma proprietary data. If you go to spotgamma.com, you can start to look at this data in our equity hub. So you can see this green means net added. It syncs with this surge in open interest. And then bam, all of a sudden it's closed. And this is what we were talking about here on 1024, right? These positions were closed. Well, what it seems like, and this is my conjecture here, it seems like he closed his fund. He closed those positions because he obviously gave a bunch of capital back to investors. If you close your fund, that's probably what you're doing. And then he added those positions back on. And this is where I speculate, I don't know for sure, but I speculate this is where he got back into those positions. And that's why the open interest has now crept back higher. Now, our buy side open interest identifies just hedge funds. There could be market makers or sell side entities that have also some positions on here. So these numbers don't perfectly tie out, but what we're doing is showing you where we believe hedge funds are positioned and somebody like a Burry would be positioned. So we try to cut through to say, who are the people that are actually trying to make money off a trade versus hedging, et cetera. So that is the big change. Now, last but just not least, I thought this was interesting. He closed these positions on 1024. This is from Thinkorswim. It's the price of the 50 strike put. You can see this put price has been just careening. You can see where the volume started to pick up. Again, that syncs with the increase of open interest. So Burry was building his position. And the put price largely was around $2 to $3. Now, he closed his position per our data right here, really into the lows. His closing probably drove the price of this position down quite a bit. So he seemed like he was kind of flat. And then he bought back in here what it seems like on 11.15. So Burry now owned these things around $2, and they're around 240, 245 right now. So he seems to be making a little bit of coin on this position, but it looks like he's positioned to make a lot more. So anyway, that's the update. We hope that this data and information was helpful. If you have any questions, email us at info@spotgamma.com. Thanks.